Welcome to the High Era, a time where our ship is first bought by its very first captain. Sayeed, please can you roll a d4 to determine which captain we get?
4.
4. We are using the bonus content PDF for today,
Yes.
and that determines that we have got a military officer. So a military officer has bought our Efficien Core and is moving in to the Chordata's hull.
And would you say that they are using it for military purposes?
Interestingly, I believe they are.
Oh.
So we will need to determine exactly what that means for our wonderful ship. So let's talk. Let's consider our military officer. They are probably human, since I think we're sort of basing this from a Efficien is an Earth based company, though we didn't specify actually. But let's say they're human just to make things easier to begin with. Saeed, let's build them out a little bit. What does our captain look like?
What does our captain look like? I think no one understands how truly no one understands how the Chordates like what's their deal?
Yeah,
Like why are they okay with strapping a ship onto their butts and flying through space? And um what as a military operation you want to do, you've heard of this amazing vehicle that doesn't is completely fuel efficient, is beyond artificial intelligence. Like you can code if and not and all of those algorithms into a computer, but ultimately this core date has its own motivations that we don't fully understand. They seem to be compliant with what we're doing. What they've done is sent, they're using one of the 1111 ships. They've decided to test out one of them with one of the core fleet, and they want to you basically send a younger kind of up and coming military person, possibly like a captain who has a small battalion, um, and they are basically testing out its effectiveness as a freighter in their military operations because they're not 100% sure whether the Chordate will be willing to participate in combat, um, because the Chordate has given them unspecific answers and refuses to answer that question directly.
interesting. So this isn't just a typical captain looking for a cool ship. This is a captain testing the capabilities of what this can do, but also, you know, a little bit of espionage and finding out, you know, what it will do.
That's definitely the perspective of the captain of the ship. They're being thrown to the wolves, right? Like, in terms of if this person dies as a result of the Chordate destroying them, kind of doesn't matter. It's a small battalion that was transferring stuff. That's
Interesting.
not something they know.
Yeah.
It's more about what situation they've been put into. No one
Okay.
fully trusts this technology, even though all the terms and conditions are laid out.
Interesting. We do have some traits for this military officer. They are pompous, demanding, and vain,
Oh,
which actually works quite well with what we said because maybe they're a bit too vain. Maybe they're a bit too demanding, and actually, let's just send them onto the ship. And if it all blows up, we're fine. Wonderful. Let's give our military officer a name.
Bing. Right?
Bing.
No. Bing?
Okay.
Bing.
Captain Bing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do they look like?
Hmm. They they have beautiful uh black long silken hair. They have they're kind of unspecific race, like kind of this I guess it's like the future, and there's more homogeneity
Yeah,
between the different groups of people. They are the kind of person they look they're in military garb. Um, I would say that they, in terms of our understanding of gender now, we don't understand what gender will look like in that time, but based on our understanding of gender now, they are a man. They wear typical military garb. Possibly their skirt is a little bit too short, you know, like
should a bit long.
they're, yeah, they're really proud of their legs,
Yeah,
so they want to show off those legs. They're vain. They have a couple of pocket mirrors on them. They like to look in the mirror when they speak to the Chordate. They they like to, like they're not megalomaniacal.
yeah,
They are, but to some degree there is a little bit of megalomania, the seed of megalomania in them. So when they like to think of the Chordate as an extension of themselves, just like the ship as an extension of themselves, just like the battalion is an extension of themselves. Everything is built to serve this person, whether they know it or not yet.
yes. And I imagine actually by being given one of the few rare ships, their vanity has only skyrocketed. Pun intended.
Nice.
Wonderful, wonderful. So Captain Bing, Commander Bing. Should we promote them a little bit? Just
Maybe they are captain, but they go by Commander Bing.
oh, wonderful, and they sort of have their own battalions so that they can enforce that rule. That actually, you call me Commander Bing.
Yeah. Who are you gonna go to? Your seniors? It's gonna take a light year to send a message,
Yeah.
you know?
I feel sorry for their battalion already. So it sounds like they are sort of on the forefront of the war. Perhaps they're not charged with fighting in it because we don't know whether the core data will contribute to the fight or if they have weapons. Um, Perhaps his mission really is just to sort of push the boundaries of the front line to discover what's out there and see what planets are worth fighting for or inhabiting or just general sort of deep space reconnaissance.
I think, yeah, their mission will have been that you need to go and understand some of these potentially uninhabited planets to build military bases or build like dock a wharf. I can't think of the right word.
A wolf.
A wharf. Why did I say wharf?
Oh, okay.
Um,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like
Like those initial places
a
where
base.
the command ships stop outside a
Yeah,
planet. They just need like that hub area
yeah.
which can help transport them down.
And I think in their arrogance and maybe eagerness, they stash weapons for the arriving troops. They like they've got a freighter that they're ultimately just using for exploration, right? But they have a lot of potential for carrying a lot of goods on their ship. So what they do is try to leave resources for the future inhabitants of the base.
So we know their ship is pretty fully stocked because they are leaving supply drops as we go along. I also think it's going to be quite well inhabited because I feel like this captain doesn't want to do too much for themselves and so has a lot of help. Our first question says, describe their two lieutenants and how they vie for attention.
I would say they have these two lieutenants are brothers.
Oh, that's good.
I would say one of them is more of the muscle, so identifies with Bing on workout routines. They talk about lifting
Yeah,
and squats,
like we do.
you know? Yeah, like we do,
Yeah, yeah,
obviously, like how's your squats going? My squats are going well, thank you very much.
yeah.
That's what gym people talk
That's
about, right?
exactly.
Yeah,
That's yeah, yeah,
sick,
yeah,
sick, sick, sick. I've nailed it.
yeah.
Shall I just go to the gym now?
No, let's finish
Okay.
this and then
Oh, okay,
maybe later.
okay. All right, all right, all right. But I've got a script now for the next guy to see.
Yeah,
How's the squats going, bro?
yeah.
Nice. Mine are
You're
good
gonna make
too. Thank
friends
you.
very quickly.
The other one is, I guess, more in tune with the Chordate, is more tries to think more.
Yeah,
Then I would say they're both of equal intelligence and equal strength, right? But the vying for attention doesn't necessarily come from the younger brother who is more muscular. It doesn't come from him showing feats of strength. It's he might surprise everyone and give a perfect instruction to the core ship that they're on right now.
yeah, and perhaps that older brother is also trying to build a bit more of a relationship with the core date
Yeah.
versus the younger brother who's like, this is a tool that we use, whereas the older brother's like, well, this is also a mystical being that we don't really understand, and actually, we'd probably be better off, better understanding it and connecting with it a bit more.
Yeah, I think the older brother is definitely more hesitant about using the Chordate in general,
Yeah,
but knows what it takes to well, seems to know what it takes in general more. Like they will have conversations with the Chordate, etc. Whereas the younger brother will view it more as a, yeah, you're right, as a tool, as like the artificial intelligence system, like a Alexa,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Can we give them names? The two
yeah.
our
Absolutely.
two friends, our two lieutenants are called Lu and Lee.
Our two lieutenants are called Lou and Lee.
Yeah.
Our second question talks to how Commander Bing has found themselves in this position. So the question is, which scrappy underdog punctured their inflated ego?
Can we say that either Lu or Lee, unknown to him specifically, he doesn't know why the reason he has been moved away from combat, him and his battalion have been moved away from combat, but he has recognized that both Lu and Lee seem to be enjoying this side of it more. So he's not aware of who's taken him down a peg, but his suspicions are that Lu or Lee have done something or spoken to a senior at some point.
Interesting.
I really like the names Lu and Lee.
Okay, I'm glad.
Lu and Lee, one of them not betrayed. They're still obsessed with the captain. They love Bing. They they see working with Bing as their path to success. But one of them has slipped something to a senior person about a mission or Bing's arrogance or Bing's incorrectness in the face of um, overwhelming proof that he was going to be wrong about whatever decision he made. And he wasn't directly reprimanded, but he was moved away from combat.
That's really interesting because that could either come from a place of love, like this guy is going to succeed in this set of conditions. I need to sort of engineer it, or could be from a place of hate, like this guy's a coward and he's my meal ticket. And we're not going into combat because this guy's going to run away at the first sign of trouble. So
Yeah.
let's go do something safer, and then
And
we'll
maybe Lu and Lee don't want to be in combat.
yeah,
Maybe their vibe is that they don't want to be in combat. They might have been good combat um, leads for being in the past, but being good at something doesn't necessarily mean you're interested in it, right?
exactly. there is a new section for some of the events. In the base game, there's Love and Triumph or Scum and Villainy. But in our bonus content, we've got War and Heartache. And I feel like for military, even though they're not directly on the sort of the front lines, I do feel like because they're a military officer, they are sort of swept up in this war. Would you agree?
Yeah. They're still looking for fights. Like they're going to these unknown places. They want to fight. Whether or not they're good at it is a different story. But they see themselves as a fighter, like as Hercules uh, fighting their way through the challenges to get to the position that they deserve.
Sounds great. So, War and Heartache are devastating battles, monotonous violence, and meaningless sacrifice. So, like before, if you can roll a d6, it'll determine where we end up with for this.
Two.
Ooh, this is an interesting one, and actually works perfectly for what we've been talking about. So, Commander Bing, you transported refugees from a war-torn planet to somewhere terrifying and new. Describe the refugees and their dire situation, and what hope they still carry with them.
Bing and his battalion were advancing through the front line of um, an interplanetary conflict, one of many that that the army have been carrying out. They come across plant-like species of beings that are largely pacifist in this region, and Lu and Li persuade him to take these refugees back to their home, back to Earth, in order to secure their survival. Because Earth is considered point zero, the home base. Um, because Earth is considered home base, Bing assumes that this will be a safe environment for them. They land on Earth, and as plant-based life forms, this is not something that Earth citizens have experienced or seen, and there is a massive, not just culture shock, but a massive barrier between how both forms of sentient life function in every single way. So, if you consider that the humans will need to harvest the cousins of these refugees, it's barbaric to them and like pretty upsetting. They produce their own energy through the rays of the stars, and through the nutrients they get from their soil. They move around and find different places in order to get different levels of nutrients. But their hope is because Earth has become point zero, it's a tended and well cared for garden in space.
Okay.
And they while there is a massive culture shock and fear from very basically just being their fruits being plucked from their bodies and
Yeah.
being eaten, because they might be sleeping in the middle of a town square, someone will come up and pluck something out of them. They're like, that's what are you doing? But humans don't have a solid understanding. They didn't pick up like two of these refugees, right? They picked up like maybe 100, 200,
Yeah.
because Bing is Bing thinks he can do everything,
Sure.
right? So he crowded as many people onto his ship and brought them here. And yeah, that's that. Their hope is that through time they will be able to become part of this garden that is building on Earth as a safe refuge for life, not just sentient animal life, but also sentient plant life.
So, what I'm inferring from that, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that on our present course in reality, we are sort of ruining the Earth and destroying it. But perhaps in the future, what happened was when we learned space travel, we sort of left Earth in droves to not only explore the planets, but to sort of use these resources instead of continuing to crush the earth. From that, the Earth has had sort of time to heal. It's become a bit more bountiful, and now it's a bit more of a holiday. It's Tenerife. The whole planet is a holiday destination for sort of and it's like it's nice to go back and enjoy it, but actually sort of needs to be protected and nurtured a lot more than we've done historically, and so that's why there's sort of this desire to bring the plant species back.
I hate to be like a down player, a naysayer, but it's not Tenerife. We can't make it Tenerife. It's the Amazon,
Yes,
like the future. No, it's how I think of, uh
nothing wrong with
the
Tenerife,
Sahara.
by the way.
Huh?
So there's nothing
I've
wrong
never
with the
been to
Tenerife.
Tenerife. I've never been to
Never have I,
Tenerife.
but we can't
No.
just
I'm not,
besmirch.
but it's not the Amazon rainforest.
All right,
I mean,
it's
I don't
cooler.
know. Maybe I'm
Yeah,
just being a snob. Maybe I'm being a snob. But I think of it as, how in the progression of the Sahara, the idea of the progression of the Sahara being stopped is by using a barrier of trees. That's how they're trying to prevent the progression of the Sahara. I think that basically ended up extending beyond that. So it becomes more like a natural national park
yeah,
where a UNESCO heritage site.
yeah, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, perfect. The question then is: does Commander Bing
Hmm.
have permission to return these
No,
refugees?
no.
He
He takes it upon himself.
from because of Lou and Lee.
Yeah.
They like you. This is the smart option. We got to do this. You'll be a
We've got
hero.
to do something. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
People,
yeah.
if you say
Yes.
you
Yes.
you want to save an
Yes.
entire race, they're going to write your name in the history books.
Yeah.
And then he comes back and is like, "Hey, I've got some plants," and everyone's like, "We like plants," and they're like, "They're living plants. We do need to find them a home."
They need they need to be left alone. We can't harvest them. And people are like, "Oh, then what's the fucking point?"
Yeah, and maybe that actually plays into can we really trust Commander Bing anymore? Let's just send him on some fact finding. This was
Yeah.
actually a
You know what? You want to go find some facts so much? Go find some fucking more facts.
perfect.
Basically, it's kind of like a really military upheaval. I mean, he deserved it. He's an idiot
Sure.
and doesn't actually do anything, but he feels really hard done by that.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why Lou and Lee are vying for his attention constantly, because they're like, well, um, they're trying to make it up to him constantly.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, wonderful. We have talked a lot about Commander Bing, how they're using the Efficien Core. I think we could really go further into their escapades, but let's talk. Let's zoom out and talk about this sort of warring galaxy. We've got different factions vying for um, inhabitation of planets. There seems to be a constant struggle, um, and we're sort of in a quite a tumultuous time, I think we could say. So let's look at what we can do. Let's go to the shifts and currents table. And get a prompt from there, and then we can sort of build out the galaxy a bit more. So, Said, if you can roll a d6, please.
D6, where did you go? There you are. D6. One. Christ.
One.
I mean, it's not a bad thing, but it feels bad, you
Uh,
know?
well, this works really well
Okay,
for our story.
nice.
A militant faction grows rapidly into a galactic superpower, imposing their authority on all beneath them. Who leads this order, and how is their control enforced? So I think what where our story's gone is that from the sort of 20 different factions fighting for dominance, one has risen above the rest. How have they done that? Who is it? And what does their sort of rule look like?
The military rule is brought about by this faction that basically spends a lot of their time rather than actually combat and rather than participating in combat, they spent a lot of their early time mining resources on other planets, on empty planets, rather than participating necessarily in the conflict. So at a certain point in the conflict, while they will continue to send out little battalions to defend their territories, ultimately they spent a lot of time hoarding, and as a result of the hoarding, they managed to gain a huge amount of fuel related advantage and material advantage. And that's how they basically came back into, they left their galaxy or solar system to mine resources and they brought back all of that resource. It's kind of like what Britain did in literally every other country, going to every other country, picking up its resources, bolstering itself, and then going for America.
Yeah, sort of an economic
Yeah,
tactic to focus on and just being richer than the rest.
yeah.
And then they can start to control, maybe a couple of factions join them because they're
They
losing.
buy them out.
Yeah,
They just buy them out. Very simply, it's ultimately about power and greed and control, right? And they may not be able. The offer is that if 15 of the 20 different factions join up with them, they might not have all the control, but they have some control. Whereas right now there is no control in this star system.
what I love about our story is that capitalism wins, and isn't that a wonderful
No,
way?
it's a conflict.
A
It's a
wonderful
start.
way to end the first era. Great. Okay, let's talk more about this faction. Who are they? Are they sound more of a corporation than sort of an alien race? Um, what are your thoughts on who they are and what they're called?
This faction that has come as a conglomerate of multiple factions is a loosely structured corporation. It's not necessarily a corporation that is interested in making profits or in increasing their margins or increasing their population. They want to preserve the wealth that they have. So they're like landlords, they're space landlords, where they go around uh, taking ownership of buildings up to planets and star systems and refuse to pass on ownership beyond their clique, their group of people.
Yeah,
I want them to be called the Horde because I think it represents the tendency to amass and hold on to multiple different types of wealth, but also there are multiple. There's 15, 20, less than 20 obviously, but like a few groups of factions that are basically clumped together with the idea of consolidating wealth and holding on to that wealth beyond their lifetimes. Like they're not looking to build, they are looking to own.
okay. So they're looking to become old money.
Yeah,
Okay, nice. And I love the duality of hoard and hoarding.
yeah, right.
So that works very nicely. That's great. So they become the dominant force in the galaxy for a time. Certainly for the time that Commander Bing lives their military career.
Yes.
Let us decide how their fate ends, and how their time with the Chordate comes to a close. So we've got two tables. We've got Love and Triumph. This is the positive prompts where our captain, Commander Bing, did well. Or we've got Scum and Villainy, where perhaps their time doesn't come to fruition. So how do you see Commander Bing going, positively or negatively?
I personally think he's a piece of shit, but I ideally would not like them to succeed. But in this world right now, negative forces are winning. So I think there's a higher chance amongst the chaos that they would get an easy route.
Yeah.
I think Commander Bing would definitely face love and triumph over any adversity as they come to the end of their time in this running the ship.
Wonderful. So once again, we're going to do a d6 to determine what prompt, but this time this will sort of lead us to the ending, the retirement of Commander Bing. So if you'd like to roll a d6, please.
2.
With your captain's flash flying and steady aim, which let's face it, is probably mostly the Chordate, you destroyed a symbol of oppression. Describe the encounter, and how did it all come down to one last desperate attack run?
The Efficien Core that Commander Bing is flying in quotation marks, comes across the planet Califia, where they encounter more evolved life forms than they were expecting. And when they encounter these more evolved life forms, the Chordata on does not necessarily agree with establishing a base. They have never encountered the Chordata disagreeing or even questioning their motives. And in a dispute with the Chordata about speed, not even necessarily relating to the colonization of this planet, the Chordata, in a fit of rage, opens the cargo doors and drops bombs onto the power stronghold of these Calafians. This is all a mistake. The Chordata doesn't seem to express grief or like really tend to express any emotion really, apart from this one time they were annoyed that they were being told they weren't going fast enough. And what happens is Commander Bing essentially takes credit for all of this and considers himself a liberator of the Calafians.
Amazing. And then comes back, takes
The
the
accolades.
accolades, the hero medals, dines out on the speaking circuit about how he heroically liberated this planet. Lou and Lee get their promotions to their own captains. They get their own ships. How do we think that the faction that Commander Bing was reporting into considers the use of the Chordate or the Chordatas? Do they consider it a success? Would they pursue further, or do you think they're like, great, it is a bit weird because we don't have ultimate control, so we don't want to use them? What are their thoughts?
Ultimately, what's happened is the Chordata has helps them destroy the power of one planet, Califia. And multiple times while they may have been doing runs to discover new planets, they materially do not feel like they've had that much success. They don't think it's a failure. They don't think it's a success. They didn't want anything to do with this. It just kind of was an experiment that they had to carry out. So I don't think they care. They're not interested in this amazing fuelless thing because they, as they become the Horde over time, do not need that level of fuel efficiency.
Commander Bing was part of the Horde.
They all become the Horde, right?
I mean,
Yeah,
they don't have to, but they
yeah.
can do, right?
Most of them do.
So,
Like I think
okay.
15 out of 20 become the Horde. So while the Commander is maybe at the start not necessarily part of what the Horde was, they eventually become part of the Horde.
Interesting. And then, so actually, this just becomes an asset on a spreadsheet somewhere, because Lou and Lee have gone off to their own ships, and Bing is pretty much enjoying the speaking circuit and retirement and being a war hero. Wonderful. And we leave the Chordata for a time, and we'll pick up in Act 2 and find out who our new captain is, and more importantly, how they find and acquire the ship. And while we do that, the Horde will continue to be a menace to the galaxy and continue to grow and evolve over time. welcome to Act 2, A Time of Strife. For our second act, we are going to go and find a new captain for the Efficien Core, our wonderful Chordata. Saeed, please roll a d4 and let's find out who is our new captain.
Oh, Captain, my two.
2. Okay. That is very, very cool. We have as our new captain a rebel leader. They are defiant. They are beloved. They are uncompromising, which is perfect because our universe has just been dominantly taken over by the Horde. So, last we left our wonderful Commander Bing. They were basking in the success of their accidental victory. Um, and we said that their company, their battalion, the greater structure in which they were uh, based, working for, was taken over by the Horde. So, I think the real question, Said, is how does a ship owned by the Horde fall into the hands of a rebel leader?
The plant species from before, I decided I called the photosynths,
Yeah,
and in the time that Bing has left them on an Earth that doesn't accept them, I can see a leader rising through this small community's ranks to kind of um, to reflect their anger towards the injustices that have been put on them. They were rescued from their own planet that was being attacked as refugees. They were brought to an Earth that was, in theory, supposed to be more hospitable and welcoming, as it was becoming this like garden of this ground zero for the Earth. So like the idea that the humans abandoned, not abandoned, but left Earth to become more like a garden so that it can support life better in a way that kind of provides humanity with retribution for the fact that it took Earth to the brink of destruction. So these photosynths felt like it would be a place where they could belong. And I think the rebel leader rises out of the photosynths because it also there's the horde which is now taken over everyone, which is it's not really taken over. The horde, we are the horde now. Like 15 to 17 out of the 20 original factions will be in the horde. And they are horde. They are it's like we are legion, right? Like the idea is that they are it's not about taking over, it's about assimilating um, power structures to build a bigger power structure. So yeah, that's where I and how that ship has come into their hands. I think the ship has never been viewed as a valuable asset by top brass. So it's generally a compromise. So what would have happened is that after Bing had left, after Lu and Lee had moved on to their promotions, the rest of the battalion, I guess, will have dispersed into other leaders' battalions,
yeah,
and the ship will have been used probably as a freighter for a bit to cart materials back and forth, but under no specific lead. It was kind of a van or a truck for them. And the photosynths will have noticed when it landed back on Earth the vast potential. They've seen it, they've
yeah.
traveled in it, and they probably knew more about the technology and the structure of how the ship worked than they were laying on. So yeah, that's where I can see the photosynths rising.
Amazing. This isn't where I saw the story going at all.
No?
Uh, I can you give us a bit of a clearer idea of what the photosynths look like? Are you thinking like mini treants? Or there were a couple of Pokemon in the very early days which were like flowers. You sort
Yeah,
of
like
what's the
Weeping Bell kind of vibes. Like it's kind of
yes,
like predatory plant mixed with an ant. So in my mind, an ant is thousands of years old, right?
yeah,
Like the idea is that they've been shepherds of the forest for a long time. These are not shepherds. They are they will have been earlier in the life cycle of ant evolution, but beyond the life cycle of Pokemon uh
yeah.
consciousness.
So I just mean for sort of visual
visually.
purposes. What do they? So they've got legs and arms.
Yeah, but I guess they would need to spend time during the day uh, expanding their grounding themselves or pushing their roots into the soil in order to be able to photosynthesize at mealtime. Maybe that's how they do meals. At 1 o'clock
Nice.
in the afternoon, they sit down for a nice half hour, photosynthesize, and get on with the day. And at night, they do a big respiration.
So
I did plant biology.
did you? Wow. Would you say that they've had to add soil beds to the ship?
Ooh, yeah, maybe. Very good point.
I just wanted
Yeah.
to. It was just a pun. It was
Ah,
because you have soil beds, right?
I took that really seriously. Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, soil beds. Well,
Soil
we have
beds
to
is the
build an
thing,
inclusive space.
and then they
The
sleep.
Chordata is all about inclusivity, if anything.
Wonderful.
They're
Uh,
pretty at one with the universe. I don't think they're fussed about those changes. Maybe they're a little bit persnickety about the soil everywhere. Who
the
knows?
question is: do the photosynths and the chordata do they have not necessarily a relationship them, but in general the species have had have they had previous interactions? Do they do, or
No,
not?
I think maybe this species was a newer species that we discovered on this planet that Bing accidentally rescued them from. Well, rescued them from not necessarily under his own plans, right? And the photosynths will have been the species type maybe will have been familiar. We don't really know enough about what the Chordata thinks.
Exactly.
Um,
We don't, but maybe the photosynths do. That's what I was asking.
maybe there might be some level of mutual understanding of how the ravages of space leave like tend not to care for individual species, and I'm getting the feeling that the Chordata are a little bit less of a species that is growing and looking for dominance, more a species that considers living on and observation more important, whether that be through servitude, which we don't even know whether this is something they would consider servitude.
Yeah.
Are they connected to their bodies? Do they consider their bodies a vehicle for them in life or an actual part of their soul?
Who knows?
There's a level of detachment I feel that I get from the Chordata, where that's kind of how I feel about whales, Like I just feel like they're these massive species of beings that like they must know more than we understand. They sing in the oceans, they communicate in ways that do not have harsh, simple words or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? There's something mystical, and I think that's what I see these space chordata, these whale type beings that are floating through space being like.
Fair enough. Let's give our rebel leader a name to make things easier for our questions going forward. What would you like to call them? Do they have a name? Do they? How would they individualize?
That's a good point. Do plants have names? Do you think plants would have names for one another?
I don't know, but also this is a fictional species, so even if plants don't have names for each other, you could say they do. It's the magic of storytelling.
I want to call her Sunspear.
Oh,
I don't know why,
that's a great name,
but
though.
photosynthesis, sun, and like synthesizing the sun. Maybe she can like make a spear of light. Let's not get carried away.
Let's, yeah,
But
sorry.
Sunspear.
Sunspear is a great name. Okay, so Sunspear on the Earth, not loving it, is corralling the other photosynths to be like, hey, we got to do something. Earth isn't as much as a party time as we had hoped for. Um, and then the Chordata presumably lands on Earth, which would be amazing. I thought they were probably going to be an orbiting style spaceship, but they've landed on Earth. What does Sunspear? How does Sunspear convince our wonderful Chordata to let them be captain and fly them away?
I suppose when the Chordata lands, when the Efficien Core lands on Earth, um, what we they will have landed with the pilot, because that's they don't tend to like float around in space by themselves. So when the pilots and the little crew lands, I suppose Sunspear and a small contingent of her troop, or not necessarily a battalion yet. It's more the fledglings of a like a small rebel force, a small rebel guerrilla force, who like the best of the best in the photosynths, who are not really a warring species, right? Um, I suppose they will, first of all, take the ship against the pilot's will, and I think what will have happened is they upon entering the ship, they will have tried to emulate some of the things that Lu and Lee they've seen Lu and Lee do. And in my mind, they struggle um, to begin with. So maybe their departure from Earth is not as simple as you would expect. The Chordata is probably taking their instructions very literally,
Yeah.
um, and doesn't necessarily care that it's being stolen, which is a bit strange, but perhaps it's empathy from recognizing them from before. Um, but yeah, I think it would be a difficult job because they don't actually have any, you don't have the initial like when you go onto a website and they're like, this is how you navigate this website. Some terrible websites do that. Like this is where you can find this. They didn't do that initial training. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like, when you like go into Google Word for the first time, you're like, oh, I guess I'll figure this out. It's kind of that vibe.
That also makes sense because the Chordata communicates telepathically. And after 20, 30 years of communicating with humans, trying to adjust to a new brain structure, thought process could probably be quite challenging. So perhaps there is a sort of communication problem between the two.
Yeah.
Um, great. Let's go to our captain questions, which we've already started answering.
Sweet.
So it says describe the ragtag militia, which I believe we have. But the second part of the question is the freedoms that they fight for. So what is Sunspear's ultimate aim here? Is it just to escape Earth and find a new planet, or do they want to do a bit more? If they don't, our story might be quite short with our second captain. But what are your thoughts and hopes for Sunspear?
Well, I think Sunsphere is like in the primary in their primary goal in mind, like they need to get off this planet. They're
Yeah,
focused. They're the Sun Sphere. They are like she wants to leave the planet, but she recognizes and understands the injustices of the universe and the crimes that the Horde continues to commit by hoarding wealth, by not ensuring that marginalized or communities that are struggling like hers are being empowered in any way. The Horde could easily afford to, I want to rhyme, but I'm not going to. The Horde could easily afford to relocate them to a planet and ensure that there is adequate resources, for example, nutrient-rich soil that they don't have to pay rent for. Or do you know what I mean? There's
yeah,
structures in place that the Horde uses to extract wealth from the citizens that um, these photosynths are not used to. Like you take a plant and you suddenly say you have to pay for this
yeah,
sunlight. Weird.
sure. Are they
Yeah,
being charged on Earth for sunlight?
yeah, maybe not
Okay,
sunlight. The other elements of photosynthesis, like water,
ground rent.
um, nitrogen-rich oil.
Sure. The fancy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, the good stuff, like the
Yeah.
plant food. You got to get like those little granules of, you seen those?
Yeah.
Granules of plant food? Yeah.
Okay. So they're upset with the Horde. So are they fighting back against the Horde?
Not directly. They're upset with the Horde in a way that many communities are upset with the Horde. They know that this ship is a Horde spaceship.
Yeah,
It belongs to the Horde. So inevitably, when fighting to get off the planet or to fight to get their rights on the planet, they are fighting the Horde.
yeah.
Yeah.
But like, what does day two look like?
Day
Day,
two,
day one, we secured the ship. We've left Earth's orbit.
yeah.
Great. What's
Use the Chordata to find an appropriate star system for them to settle in.
okay?
And I don't think they will have left with all of the photosynths
Okay.
because, like I said, they were peace-loving people. They're not peace-loving people, just uh, 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 people that have not experienced war to that degree. So they will need to go to a place, figure out whether this is appropriate for them, and then bring the hundreds of others back. And they're
Right.
plants, right? So they in maybe 40, 50 years since they've landed there, they will have proliferated hundreds and thousands of times because there's different ways that plants like pollinate and like some might have when spider plants, they like you get little baby spider plants off the end of a spider plant.
Sure.
Maybe there's mother
Okay.
plants like that with loads of little, you know?
So the mission is free photosynths from Earth and relocate all of them, to a new home world.
Yeah.
Great. So in that process, there's a lot of exploration to find the right place. Do we think they find it easily? I think they probably don't. If we've had years of warring factions trying to expand and inhabit as many planets as possible, I feel like we're sort of the majority of the good places have been taken.
Yeah. And they don't know how to instruct the Chordata yet.
So that's still an
So they don't
ugly.
know fully how to be like, okay, take us to a planet with a lot of sun, and they show up on a planet with burning sunlight. They're on Venus now. Like, come on, Chordata, cut us a break. You know, we're on the same page. They're like, I gave you what you asked for.
Come on,
You
buddy.
must. It's kind of like a sensei situation where the Chordata is like, you need to figure out what you want.
Okay, so after months of ugly driving, going to the wrong places, they start to sort of sort out where start to find some more to finally find some potential candidates. Um, okay, do you think how do we make this story a bit more exciting?
How dare
The
you? This is over. All
we
right,
we've
sorry.
talked about your
Okay.
age.
I'm taking my ball and going home.
Take your plants as well, yeah.
Oh, no, you don't like them?
Uh, would
God.
you're supposed to be a rebel leader? Where's
Yeah,
the rebelling? You know, what's happening? Where's the action?
I'm not Sunsphere.
I mean, for all
Clearly,
intents and purposes,
clearly.
you are.
Look at me.
Yeah,
I'm,
a
yeah.
beautiful plant. It needs to be watered twice a day.
Yeah, yeah. Twice a day. No, 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 no. We got to water them once a week.
Oh,
This is no, we can't water them that often. Their soil will get sodden.
right. Okay. Okay.
Sodden.
Have you tried to grow plants in Sodden? Soya? Have you? Doesn't
Ah,
work.
come on. You drown them. You drown them.
Okay.
Someone,
Okay.
someone is not into their plants.
Well, this is a boring story so far.
All right, give me some more. Okay, let's. They have to leave the planet,
So they have to
and
leave the planet.
yeah, yeah.
So there's a lot of exploration, a lot of finding wrong planets. When they finally find the right planet, what do we think that looks like? Is that an uninhabited wild land, or is this perhaps a place the Horde has already reached? So they need to start working out how they can live on this planet. Perhaps out of all of the planets, there is only one key planet that ticks all the boxes, and it's this planet or nothing.
There is one key planet. that they found after months of exploration. But when they land, the Chordata tells them that it's T minus 50 years until the Horde will come to this planet. This is one of the planets that the Chordata has
Ooh.
explored before through Bing, and because they've learned how to communicate with the Chordata more effectively over the past few months, the Chordata was able to say, I've been to somewhere, but it is risky. But there are no other planets in the star system that meet the needs that you require. Unfortunately, safety is not guaranteed for the entire duration of your time on this planet, and you will need to prepare for the inevitable arrival of the Horde.
See, that's exciting. I
Yeah.
almost love that. I love the idea that maybe even it wasn't found. They knew Bing hadn't made it to the planet,
No.
but the Chordata mystically knows.
Yeah.
We are watching. There are 1,100 of us out here. We are talking to ourselves. We're talking to each other. You don't know that,
Yes.
but we are observing everything. So we know there is this one planet. I've never been there, but we know that like 50 years from ish, give
It
or
is
take a year
done.
or two,
Yeah.
you're going to be in the hot seat. Do you want to do it? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Um, I guess Sunspear says yes.
Sunspear doesn't have a choice at this point. They've spent months away from their home planet. They were the leading voice of dissent in the on Earth, as it was. So they are worried about their people. Um, and yeah, they decide to leave some of the battalion behind when they do go back to Earth to find them. But the idea would be that they leave behind uh, they leave behind seeds, other methods of expanding their population and training up the right kind of people to uh, be able to withstand the horde if the time comes. But
Interesting.
they will need another solution because a bunch of plants without materials for war are not going to be able to do a whole lot on an interplanetary scale, right? So I think maybe there is the idea that yes, I'll leave seeds and cuttings on this planet and some of the more older guerrilla fighters on the planet, but on my way back to Earth, we need to figure out how we can amass tools and resources to actually be able to fight the Horde when the time comes.
Wonderful. So if we do a little time skip here, maybe 2 or 3 years, Sunspears spent that time taking photosynths to the new planet. Do we want to give the new planet a name? Photosynth Prime?
Synth 1?
Synth 1? Ooh. Suggest there's going to be more. Our second captain question is, of all the missions together, which felt the most desperate?
I think the first one originally felt the most desperate, and
Yeah,
then
we're not doing that.
desperation increased its the stakes just kept getting higher for her. Like first, I have to help my people leave this planet. Okay, now we've left this planet. I have to help my people find a new planet. Okay, we found a planet. This planet is incredibly unsafe. I need to make a way for this planet to become safe. I go and find a potential solution, but the horde is too big. The horde is too numerous. So what can I do here? They get caught, put in prison with their put in a war gulag with their uh, with their crew of other plants, and ultimately they're plotting. This is their most desperate mission now, to get out, take these resources. They think they have a plan to get these resources back to Earth and then bring the right people back to Synth One.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've gone from let's have a mission to the mission failed. They got captured. They're in a prison. They now have to escape. This sounds like the perfect, most desperate mission. Way scarier than the finding a new planet.
Yeah.
Um, because there's real stakes. But this prison type place has the materials that they need.
Yeah, the planet that they tried to hoard? No, sorry, second. The planet that they tried to steal supplies, weapons, resources from, there are inhabitants, and the horde always has prison structures wherever it settles. So what they did was, in the interim, until they want to move them to like a massive huge high security prison. They're staying on the planet, and that's why it's so desperate, because they have to break out and take the resources before they are moved into the penitentiary. Penitentiary, is that like the big prison?
Penitentiary, I think, can be yes, is the big house.
The big house.
But okay, so they're more in temporary sort of police cells, and they've got a short sort of period, maybe a day or two, before they get moved to a more secure facility, and that's when they need to make the heist, steal the materials, get off the planet, save the people, defend Synth One. It's pretty stressful.
It is. They're very stressed.
And let's talk about what's the Chordata doing during this time.
Ooh, good question. The Chordata is possibly, I think I like the that they're floating around in orbit,
Okay.
because ultimately they're still a Horde ship.
Yeah.
The Horde ship maybe was not recognized as being alongside um, Sunspear.
So they landed, got off the ship, then got captured, and everyone's just like, "Well, that's just another. That's in the database as one of our horde ships, so that's fine."
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so high stakes, high rewards. Do we think ultimately Sunspear is successful?
So during the prison break, Sunspear's companions, Oak, Oakwind, um, sorry, fuck. I'm gonna bring this in front of me. I wrote three names down. So during the escape, we have Sunspear's companion Blue Blossom, initially distracting the guards, but a distraction in terms of distracting soldiers of the Horde does not come without a cost, so they lose their life. Night Lily will cover up any light sources to prevent people being able to see the activities that they're carrying out, but within having to cover up light sources, they ultimately wither and die because of taking away their own access to photosynthesis, and because of the energy they've taken up to rescue take the resources and supplies, they die. And finally, Oakwind will help them take off from the planet, um, using their massive. So maybe Oakwind is a little bit more Ent-like. So Oakwind will basically expand in order to throw them into the atmosphere, beyond the atmosphere, into our Chordata's orbit, so that they can actually take the resources onto the Chordata. But in expanding that exponentially, they also lost their life. So the only person who makes it back is Sunspit.
Wow. Wow. So Sunspear, at the great sacrifice of his three top tier commanders, succeeds in the mission. Where does Sunspear go from here?
Earth, they have to do what they originally set out to do. So it will not be a positive reception when they arrive on Earth. First of all, because they shouldn't be going to Earth. They're already wanted now. And also the yeah, they were supposed to come back with some military leaders, and the military leaders are dead. So when they go back to Earth, it's definitely like a really, really, I guess there's disappointment from maybe some elders who were still on Earth. Um, the their personal, like, the feeling that they haven't fulfilled their responsibilities, you know?
Yeah,
The idea that that weighs heavy on them, and they spend a lot of time with the Chordata, getting to know the Chordata over the period of time they travel to Earth.
yeah,
And I guess what what comes of that is that in the original, maybe first half of their time with the Chordata, or maybe until now with the Chordata, they weren't able to issue requests as easily, but now they are more in sync with the Chordata. The Chordata, I think, as a result of their suffering, in some way is able to empathize with Sunspear more,
yeah.
and finds that there's a mutual understanding of what the universe does to you.
So maybe actually the Chordata learns more about human ambition and capitalism and the cost of this space race through the effects. And while sort of was watching it as part of the wider Chordata, sort of empathizes a lot more now
It's just
with
more
the struggle.
involved. Yeah, like before they were very distant and detached.
Yeah.
And I think this Chordata, and maybe the other Chordatas, we don't know where they are and what they're doing, all 1,111 of them.
Well, we
There
know where
is,
those ones are. We don't know where the others are.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, I hadn't even thought about the other Chordata, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, there are other Chordata who are not hooked up to spaceships.
So Sunspear's back on Earth. How how successful as a percentage are they in getting the population of photosynths onto the ship?
I think at this point they are they would be above 80%.
Okay, majority.
Um, yeah, the losses would come from the escape and the the battalion on the periphery taking them off of Earth, because they're still using a Horde spacecraft. They're still on the run now from the Horde. So yeah,
Sorry, I wasn't asking. I'm gonna re-ask that question.
sorry.
The question was like, how many does Sunspear convince?
Oh, this was always going to be the plan. Um, I think they
One,
all want to leave.
okay,
Most of them want to leave. Yeah, yeah.
great. Okay, so Sunspear's on Earth with the materials, with an empty ship, apart from the materials, and all of the plants get onto the ship. But it sounds like there might be a conflict, some attacks from the Horde on Earth to try and stop this. What what's the cost to the Horde for the photosynths leaving the planet?
Um, Control. The idea that they, well, they don't fully know what's going on, right? Like they don't have the plans of they've gone to another planet. They don't
Yeah,
work with the Chordata, so they don't know about where this planet is at the moment. And they had control over the species that they hadn't seen before, and they might have been experimenting on them. There are, like, we know that there's when a colonizing species discovers less colonizing species, there's a lot of like experimentation and like observation and disassociation from them as living beings. So they see them as their property, and they want to preserve their property. Like they are photosynths, and we talked about like the lack of energy in this. Like there is a finite volume of energy and resource in any universe or solar
yeah,
system. So the idea that there are beings that can photosynthesize is pretty huge.
sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I think we're probably heading towards the end of our time with Sunsphere. How does our time with Sunspear end? What are they successful in reaching the planet? And what use does the Chordata have for them? Does it continue? Does it just stay on the planet and chill out, because it doesn't have any current captains, or how does our what's the time look like for the Chordata as well as Sunspear?
I love Sunspear, just so you know.
Okay,
And what I'm about to do to her is not a effective declaration of love. I don't think they make it back. I don't think most of the people on the ship make it back. They're the Chordata and the resources make it back. But in order for them to lose the Horde, they have to make further sacrifices, and only a short, small contingent of the entire population makes it back to this planet. Synth 1.
once again we've told a story where capitalism wins.
Look, man, I'm just telling the story of the world.
It's insane how we spent the past 20-30 minutes telling this lovely story of a rebellion uprising, and you're like, yep, it doesn't really work. um,
For
but
now.
but enough. I mean, there are some that still arrive,
Yeah, I'd
and
say like 20 to 30% make it back. And we talked about like the idea that these photosynths, um, reproduction and sentience are not the same thing for them as it is for us. So there's probably quite a few of them, like clippings. Like that's not something you can do with a human, but like it's something you can do with the photosynths. So they can proliferate, and
yeah.
their understanding of sentience is a little bit different. Probably actually very in line with the Chordata's idea of sentience. Um, now that I think about it.
But most importantly, they get back with the materials. And
Yes.
so while Sunspear doesn't perhaps survive this mission, this ultimate mission to free her people, she succeeds. They
Yeah.
have landed on a new planet. There is enough of them to start proliferating. They have the materials to be able to defend themselves in 50 years. Big tick. Didn't survive, but big tick.
And the Chordata remains orbiting Synth 1.
Wonderful. So we're going to do a time jump 50 years into the future as we enter Act 3. Welcome to Act 3, The Descent. So before we go and pick our third and final captain for this, for the Efficien Core, let's talk a little bit more about the Horde and how the past 50 years have seen them develop, and whether or not they did find our planet of Synth-1.
I suppose over the last 50 years, the Horde continues to grow in power, engulfing more factions in the star system into their ranks. But with taking more and more people on, internal dissent grows. They're they're maybe not as coordinated as they were during the first captain's time on the ship.
Yeah.
So I think they're a little bit less organized, but they're still running things. They haven't discovered the planet, but I think there have been two other Chordata who have joined our original Chordata in orbit. Without, they're the ones who are not who aren't Efficien Core. They've just joined in orbit.
That's interesting. Okay, so the Horde have continued to thrive and grow, but have potentially grown too big for their boots or for their galaxies. And interesting. Okay, let us pick a new captain I've got a select choice for you. So if you could roll a d4, Saeed, we'll find out who we get. One, we have got a business tycoon for our captain. They are wealthy, ambitious, and driven. And what I like about the business tycoon is I think the first thing we decide, not their gender, not their name, not their commerce, is if they're part of the horde or not.
They are horde presenting.
Oh, okay, nice.
As the horde's military efforts have become less and less organized, uh, senior leadership at the horde um, starting to recognize the value of rather than directly taking over these planets, they 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 come into the idea of controlling them beyond direct rule. And the business tycoon, I guess, is uh, working kind of in parallel with the horde. So not necessarily with horde uniform, militia uniform, more in a business suit, showing up, being like a little bit like a snake oil salesman. That's the
Yeah,
vibe you might get from them.
it sounds like he sort of maybe has a cluster of planets and he said, hey, Horde, totally get what you want. If we just keep giving you the money that we've agreed, how about you just let me? I'll look after them. You don't have to worry about that. You focus. Oh, you've got those problems over there. You focus on them. I'm good. You can trust me. And sort of that's the sort of vibe.
Yeah,
Perfect. Great. Okay, so they are horde presenting, but really probably out for themselves if they are a business tycoon because they're ambitious and they are wealthy, and you can't be both and not selfish in this life. Some might say. Um, describe their. Actually, no. Let's. I was about to jump into the questions. Who are they? What do they look like? What's their name? Are they human?
no. Okay, so they are possibly a species of like I guess you'd think of an underwater mammal, kind of. I don't want to talk about it like that. So okay, the I they are kind of an underwater mammal. You know the idea that mammals will have evolved on land and then passed back into the ocean to become dolphins, etc. Well,
Yeah.
this species has passed then from the ocean back onto the land. So they're more like dolphin-y kind of human, not hybrids, but that yeah, like
Of dolphin descent.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So if man's from ape,
yeah,
this thing is from a dolphin.
yes.
Amazing. Again, you've put yourself in a box. What would their name be? Unpronounceable to the human tongue? Yeah. As soon as I asked that, I knew you were going to shrill. Like, I knew it was coming. And I didn't stop myself. I should have. What
Finn.
would that.
Their name is Finn.
Thin. Okay. A little on the nose, but thin it is.
Finn Bottlenose.
Oh,
How on the nose is that? Huh?
okay. Let's perhaps work. Let's work on the surname a little bit more.
Okay.
Just
Reasonable, reasonable.
not all first ideas are the best, you know.
It was a reaction to your comment.
Yeah. So Finn, our business tycoon. Do we reckon the planet's a majority this dolphin type species, or do we think it's a mixture?
I'd say a majority.
Majority. So perhaps Horde have landed. They sort of set up, but this Finn was like, "Hey, don't worry, we got this. You just you crack on with the rest of the world." Um, Wonderful. Are they? So do they have sort of the blue greyish hue of a dolphin, or
Yes, they're definitely like slick.
slick? I like that. Um, Describe their long-term project and what keeps delaying it?
I think the long-term project is to continue to expand and emulate what the Horde have done, um, but to amass individual wealth for themselves. So they're more a they're trying to build franchises whilst also and maintain control, rather than the Horde, which is not about franchising, is just about pure control. Well, that's what they th thought of themselves as thus far. So the idea would be that these Finn has uh, ta is yeah is looking to build their operations further, and the stopping the the inability for them to achieve this goal is uh, largely a result of like limited space travel, being able to efficiently. They want to save money. They want to not be paying this much for fuel. And a planet near their star system seems to have multiple chordates orbiting. Chordata, sorry, a planet in their star system has multiple chordata orbiting it.
That leads perfectly into my next question, which was how do we reckon Finn got access to, or why Finn's got the ships? I really like the idea that it's emulating the thing it's trying to break down, and it's using its own tactics against it, which could potentially see an uprising. Who knows? Who knows how far Finn goes? Perhaps a dice roll in the future will let us know and determine his success or their success. Him, the, her,
They,
they,
let's go there.
their success. So they're struggling a little bit because of hoarding themselves, trying not to spend money on fuel. They hear about the Chordata, and lo and behold, there is an actual ship just floating in space for what seems like 50 years. Do we think the dolphin species has a connection to the Chordata already, or has Finn just heard about the Essien, the Effie, oh my goodness, what is it? Efficien. I kept trying to say Effian. Efficien Core.
I think at this point, knowledge of Efficien Core the Efficien Core program has dissipated. Um, I mean, it's a massive, massive star system where there's only 1,111 of these ships in various forms traveling through space. Um, Multiple organizations will have tried to take them on because of their fuel efficiency, but not many people are actually effectively able to pilot these ships very, very well or maintain the relationship with the ship long enough to continue working with that individual. So by the time Finn has come across them, they just think that this planet on the edge of their system is has found a way to work in harmony with these chordata, these beings that are wrapped up in mystery and enigma. Um, they seem to have a mechanized version orbiting this planet alongside two organic versions, and they're very interested in the fact that this has been orbiting this planet for 50 years. Doesn't seem to stop off for fuel. Doesn't seem to. They've been monitoring this planet because it's strange that any chordata would be singularly focused on a planet.
Do we think all 1111 core data are still operating?
I don't think all 1,111 efficient core ships are in operation. There is no. I think at this point, the original company, Efficien, doesn't exist in its form anymore. It's gone through multiple different changes in leadership and structure. They will have just lost this experiment. It was just an experiment for them. So they've continued to do their building of really solid ships. And this was just a blip that an innovation manager came in and decided they needed to do.
So, how does Finn go about getting the ship and becoming its official captain?
Finn will individually land on Synth 1, and as a clearly coming to not necessarily help, but to reach out an olive branch to olive branch. Maybe there's an olive branch there. Reach out an olive branch to the inhabitants of Synth One. They meet the leader of Synth One, um, Star Song, and work with her to uh, warn of the impending in the impending horde. The horde is ultimately sitting at their heels and has been for the last 50 years. Through complex they will have been on the planet for days, learning about who these people are, what their issues are, specifically around the horde, and uh, manipulating them to giving up one of the Efficien Core to them in the hopes that this will function as some kind of a tax in order for Synth One not to be taken over by the Horde.
Oh my goodness. Our business tycoon is in fact a gangster, and they are charging protection money for the poor Synth One. Said, look, if you give me this wonderful ship, you can come into my fold of planets, and the Horde won't be a problem. And that's how they got the ship. When they become captain of the Chordata, do the other two join along, or do they just get access to the one ship?
They get access to the one ship. The other two Chordata continue their orbit.
Oh, okay. Something has interested the Chordata about this world, and perhaps about what's to come to this world, and they're waiting to see what happens. Interesting. Wonderful. The next question, I'm not sure quite captures our story. So let's talk more about what Finn is hoping to do and achieve now that they've got the Efficien Core. What are some of their more immediate objectives to utilizing this ship? Is it purely just a ship to transport between different worlds? Are they going on longer voyages to perhaps become an ambassador for the system to sort of make connections? What do you think their hopes and dreams are?
They are wealthy, they are ambitious, they're driven, and they see not a living being in front of them, but an asset. And they want to know how it works. They want to know the the intricacies of connecting with the Efficient Core. They've left these two core data in orbit, and they've seen multiple in their lifetime. They've seen multiple core data floating through space, and have wondered how that happens and how that works and how they could harness that power for themselves. And so they do, I mean, there's a combination, I think. They will use the core data to transfer goods and products throughout their network of planets right now, because it is quite a big freighter, quite a big freighter.
Yep.
And but alongside that, they are trying to uncover the original designers or the design specs for this ship. We talked about how it was clean and simple, and the idea was that it's not got loads of like knobs and dials basically. So that makes it very difficult for you to like see. You can't press a button and see what the effect is. They and again, a lot of this ship is there's no it's clean lines, not a lot of panels for you to get into and pull out wiring. So if they had to do something to the ship, they'd have to take it apart. So they rather than that they're wealthy as a result of being stingy, right? Like they're
Yeah.
not going to take apart the ship that is serving them a function of. completely fuel efficient travel. So that's where
It,
they're at.
it's quite sad in the way that this person Finn is trying to understand what is effectively a whale's backpack. And there was never fully completed schematics either,
No,
as the Chordata never truly sort of gave away knowledge. So, do we think Finn is probably trying to get a collection and is looking for more Efficien cores to add and make their own little fleet?
I think that's definitely a medium term plan that takes them on the path to achieving their goal of just continuing to amass wealth. They're not satisfied with the billions of space gold that they have. They want to continue to expand their collection.
One of the tables in the bonus content is called Roots and Complots. I hope I've said complots correctly. I've never seen that word before, but
Complots?
the description is naked opportunism, devious machinations, and utter devastation. And I feel like someone who's a bit more selfish might be um, a bit more in this table than the others. So, Saeed, if you could roll a d6, we're going to get a new prompt and we'll sort of find out what's happening with Finn.
3.
3. The corporation that made you, Efficiens, launches an upgraded model which quickly phases the the core line out of service. How do you feel about this new model? How does the Chordata feel about this new model? And how does this affect repairs for your ship?
The Efficient team possibly go back and rediscover this the vehicle, as they would term it, in their archives. And the issue has always been around the Chordata's individual sentience. And they, as now a lot of things in certain parts of the star system have been absorbed into the Horde. They figure out how to uh, directly re they capture some Chordata and will use them to run the ship rather than working with them in their consent to pilot the ship.
Um, so they attach a more aggressive backpack that controls. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, a backpack that mainlines to their brain.
Okay, so effectively, Efficien is starting aggressions with the Chordata and is sort of reneging on the agreement almost because they sort of had this trial program of 1111 and not all of them continue to this day, but in their bid to continue to run cheap recyclable fuel efficient ships, they've now turned aggressor, presumably because of the Horde, and are capturing. Okay, that is going to have incredibly wide implications for the universe and our running ships. So, how do our Chordata respond to this act of aggression?
Because of these new Efficient alphas that are being rolled out, the how I think the Chordata do have some level of hive collective consciousness that alerts them to this. And Finn, in particular, notices a change in the personality of the Chordata that he is working on, and notices that the Chordata becomes less malleable, less willing to participate in what it does, and seems to be um, trying to communicate something to Finn that he doesn't fully under that seems to be trying to communicate something to Finn that they don't fully seem to understand. And this is during downtime. They're still participating or acting out the agreement. They, to some degree, it seems like the Chordata are um they're the beings of their word.
Yeah.
They're not going to directly betray you. And this is what they signed up for. And but there is something going on in terms of the communication between our Chordata and Finn.
So it sounds like this Chordate is sort of just becoming a stroppy teenager in a way that they will obey your orders, but they won't be happy about it.
Yeah.
Um, Interesting. Okay. Do the Chordata respond against the aggression? Not specifically our ship, but the wider group is presumably they'll defend themselves if provoked. But are they planning? Have they enacted any response?
Yes. More and more Chordata seem to be orbiting the planets on Finn's watch. So more vehicle-free free Chordata, have entered Finn's star system, the jurisdiction that Finn is running, and they are because they're protected from the Horde there. The Horde have promised not to interfere in any of Finn's business as long as Finn continues to carry out their requests and commands so far.
That I did not see happening. Interesting. Okay. How does the horde respond?
I think at some point the Horde will try to requisition our Chordata with Finn still in the ship.
It becomes apparent that Finn is sort of
Finn is
numero
suspected.
uno.
They seem to be the problem. As far as the Horde are concerned, they see the power as being in the hands of the individual. They're more about amassing power. They don't see power being democratized. They don't think that these Chordata can lead themselves or can work together to do weird things. It's like a murmuration of starlings. You're like, what is going on? But you don't recognize that they're doing that for a purpose. You're like, oh, these starlings are being weird.
Yeah. We do have some prompts that we could turn to in the rulebook, but I think actually we should follow this story, and I think let's find out what Finn wants to achieve, and then let's leave it down to the dice to see if they are successful in their plans. So, Said, what do we reckon? Finn obviously wants to be safe. They're out for it for themselves. Is the plan to rush back to their home systems and hope that the rest of the Chordata protect them, or do they have a different idea, a different plan?
At this point, they're captured by the Horde, and I think the Horde is. I mean, as far as the Horde is concerned, Finn is now a problem. So Finn, as under this, basically Finn is undergoing like some level of fancy prisons where you can play tennis. That's what they're experiencing right now, but they can see their privileges being taken away more and more, and their power being taken away more and more. And people are the Horde is experimenting on the Chordata, trying to find out how it works, where it's been tapping into this hive mind that they haven't been able to do with the Efficien Alpha. They've just stuck um, electrodes into their brain to force them to function how they want to, but they can't extract information that way. And Finn is still ambitious, driven, wanting to make money, but recognizing that they are about to lose everything. So they decide that they want to make a deal with the Chordata to not just escape, but they're conniving, right? They're like, what's going to happen to me in the future? Will I be safe? Will I be able to get to the power I had before? So they approach the Chordata in directly without the ship because the Chordata is telepathic and attempts to communicate with the Chordata in that way.
So let's roll the dice and see how successful Finn is in negotiating with the Chordata. Uh, let's say 6 is a complete success. A 4 to 5 is a partial success where the Chordata agree, but there are terms and conditions. And then 1 to 3 is a flat out rejection. Saeed, would you like to roll to find out how successful Finn is?
5, 5. Finn! I don't like you, but you're doing okay.
Finn, you've at least survived so far. That's all that counts. So, the Chordata say, yes, we will help you, but uh, what do you think they say? I think one of the options could be we will help you, but you and your people have to abandon your planets, and we will go deep, deep space. But what do you reckon could be the conditions for the Chordata agreeing to help Finn?
The Chordata would agree to help Finn under two conditions. One, that the Efficien Alpha program, when they are done, is abandoned and anything related to the Efficien Alpha plan is destroyed. Um, the efficient, sorry, I think there would be three conditions. That first thing that they're destroyed will happen. The second one is that no, they that Finn enters into an agreement that no Chordata are approached or discussed with. They're not there's no attack on they're a species that cares about their word, right? And so you cannot approach us or speak to us unless you have an envoy, and that will have to be you. They're kind of making their peace with that. And the final thing is that you do not approach Synth One.
Finn doesn't have the power to stop Efficien Alpha, right? So that first condition is quite a tough one for Finn to agree to. Do we reckon they wholeheartedly say yes and just try to start play both sides?
I think Finn is desperate and wants to leave and wants to some like some childish like feeling of wanting your old life back, right? You're in prison. You're not you're never going to get your old life back because life is about change and evolution, right? And I guess they don't know how they will achieve it, but they say that if it is in within my power to do so, then that is something that I will carry out.
Finn's life has taken many turns. From business tycoon to galaxy number one to potentially the only human envoy allowed to speak to the Chordata. That's an exciting life.
They
Uh,
don't want that though. They don't want to speak. They don't want to be an envoy. They want to be a business person.
they do, but I think, as you said, that life might now be a past life. Okay, so going back to our D6 for success, I think Finn has one shot at convincing the Horde to break up the Efficien Alpha program, and they can leverage the fact that there won't be all-out war with a mystical being that no one truly understands if they do, but also they might just be the ravings of a mad person. So, Said, if you want to roll a d6, same targets as before. We'll see how successful Finn is in convincing the Horde to end the Alpha program. Oh no! Well, stories don't always end how we hope for them. So presumably, if the Horde says no on a one as well, on a one, it feels like maybe not only do they say no, but you're now too dangerous to be in contact with the Chordata. I think perhaps our poor business tycoon Finn uh, is transferred to a maximum security prison,
Solitary.
solitary confinement. Perhaps they've got special metal that stops telepathy coming through, and the Chordata never hear from them again. Which is a sad way to end our story. So let's keep it going a little longer and find out what happens to the Horde and the Chordata. What do you reckon as our final question for our story? What holds what's in the future for our ship, and what's in store for the wider galaxy and universe?
I think that was the last straw. That was they tried. They tried to work with these species that are intent on destruction. They tried to work with these species in a way that prevented their destruction. They have watched over millennia species like the photosynths be completely destroyed by interlopers, by colonizers, by violence. And the cutting off of the a species or a person who is able to more easily communicate with them than maybe a human or a plant was able to. It takes time for you to build that affinity. They feel a very personal loss, and I think war has to break out, but it's not a war that the Horde can handle because there. I think a distress call or something would go out once they fully detached the mechanisms from our Chordata, and they didn't know that this is something that would have had an impact.
Yeah.
But when they finally freed the Chordata, not freed it as in freed it from their internal prisons, but freed it from the mechanisms, they were unable to prevent the uh, the the call for help, the SOS that went out.
And growing so dominantly, there are cracks in the wall throughout the galaxy where they are too big to effectively handle and provide a solid defense against the hulking beings that are the Chordata.
Yeah, they're coming in from the depths of space. And until that point, you would only see like 5 or 6 Chordata maximum in your lifetime. And what's happened now is that they've enraged these peaceful beings to a breaking point. Um, I don't think that the Chordata are, even in their fury, they once all of this is over, once the battle is won, they respect the original agreement that they made with Finn. They do find another envoy, but um, they decide that they are still willing to work with other species. They don't tarnish all species with the same understanding of the Horde. That's why they want to keep the synth ones alive, because they're in tune with their planets, with the environments around them, and are willing to grow and build around what already exists without quashing um, the the
Hopes and dreams of the other species in the
yeah,
galaxy.
yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I think that's the end of our story. We followed the Efficien's Core from birth to death in terms of it being used as a ship. I think we learnt to never break bonds with or break our promises with space whales, because it will end up with our destruction and doom. But also, we learned that Bucket of Bolts is a really fun game.
Yeah, man. What?
Thank you
Crazy.
so much, Saeed, for playing this slightly modified for YouTube game of Bucket of Bolts. I hope you had a good time. I think we've got a great story out of it. And so look forward to short novellas coming out in the future, priced at $9.99 in your local currency. I think we'll make this a whole series. This has been Roll to Find Out, playing a Bucket of Bolts.